Okay, so hopefully you found your chassis. Mine was a Sprinter. It was a utilities vehicle, so that meant that it had a low mileage and it was ideal for what I wanted. It had a window in the side load door already, it had 6 extra seats in the middle, and it actually had a portaloo in the rear. All of that which I would rip out, although the toilet was reusable anyway. After that, I wanted to plan my layout. So I got specific needs. I got big windsurfing equipment, so I was experimenting how much space I would need for the windsurfing equipment, and then kind of masking out with masking tape where the cupboards would go, where the fridge, where the freezers would go, and eventually made myself a plan. Next, where do you start on something like this? I started with the seat bases. I wanted to have swivel seats. I couldn't find anything available at the time, and I had a double passenger seat base, and I definitely would need to find a single seat base to find anything, if I could find anything that would allow me to swivel that single seat. So in the end I decided to convert my own. I found seats with swivels built in. I think they come from a Vauxhall Sintra, and I decided to make up my own seat bases using some extra angle iron and welding, cutting, as you can see in the pictures there, and just making up them seat bases so I could swivel the passenger seat without having to open up the door, and also I could swivel the driver's seat without having to open up the door or change the handbrake. I decided to put some battery isolators inside the driver's seat so I could isolate the power if I'm going to leave the vehicle standing, which was handy. And then of course little things like a safe in the seat base, leisure battery storage in the seat base, and all them other things that you might want. And that's my seat bases pretty much organised, bit of paint and ready to go. Next thing, leisure battery wiring, heavy duty relay for my leisure batteries, one leisure battery in each seat, and the leisure battery is powered up from a alternator wire, the run wire, so a wire that only goes live while the engine's running. Next, get a friend in to give me a hand. My friend Mark decided to give me a hand. It was very helpful of him cutting out the roof vent. Putting in the roof vents, those clamps that you can see are really handy actually. I think if you're putting in a roof vent, you're probably going to screw it in, but also using some sealant. And using those clamps, you probably need 8 of them. I bought some clamps, I tried to get away with just 4, I tried to get away with some cheaper squeeze, pressurized ones, but in the end those ratchet up, 8 of them, done the trick, they were ideal. And if you're using any kind of sealant on a motorhome for the roof, I would recommend only 2 types. One is Sikaflex, and the other one is Tiger Seal. Forget your Wicks bathroom sealant. It's only going to last a few months or a few years and you can have water piling in, so just don't go anywhere near that stuff. The roof vent, I decided for a big roof vent, and that needed some reinforcement. I had to put some angle iron because I decided to take out one of the cross members across the roof and I want to leave some support. Next one with the wiring loom, I wanted to box this off, so in order to box this van off, that wiring loom hanging down underneath the roof just wasn't practical. I wouldn't want to leave it there and try and leave that plastic and box around it, so I decided to run that wiring loom, cut all the wires in the wiring loom, run it above the roof reinforcement struts where possible, and for the ones where there wasn't enough room, just drilled like a 20mm hole, used some convolute to protect the cables it went through, soldered up all the wires again, and heat shrink the connections. And that was also a suitable place for me to pick up my reverse feed, which would activate for the reverse camera, which I would fit in there. Now, I used a Caravan as a donor for parts. One of the parts was a shower. Now that shower, when you try and take it from a square Caravan and fit it into a van that's tapered, particularly like the shape of the Sprinter, it would need quite a lot of work going into this also, so it weren't just the seat bases that were going to cause me hassle. I cut it down, folded it, bent it, did whatever I needed to do, heated it up and glued it, sealant, and to get it to match the actual shape of the body. Next part, getting on with the van completely gutted out, all the old ply gone, and now I'm sticking with the outside of it and I'm doing the windows. So doing the windows, using a jigsaw to cut the windows out from the inside, and I decided to use the Mercedes windows. I think once you've cut out the panels, you've wax oiled the cut edges, or you've used hammerite paint, whichever your preference is. The next thing from there is to actually bond the windows in, but you're probably better off getting your local windscreen man to come around and fit those windows, because it's probably only going to cost you £30 a piece of glass for him to bond it in with the proper stuff, and that'll just save you from faffing around, although of course you could do it if you wanted to. Next thing, where I took that passenger seat off, that has part of the seatbelt tensioning tool for the SRS for the airbag. So I would need to put a resistor in there in order so I don't have an airbag warning light coming on the dashboard. So that was another bit of the job to do. And still sticking with some basic preparation works, I really wanted to put a hook in my shower. So with my shower, I windsurf, go surfing, I want to be able to hang the wetsuits up inside the shower and have them dripping. So just doing preparations for things like the putting a piece of timber above the shower, which I would later put a hook, stainless steel hook, through the shower into the piece of timber with a recessed bolt inside the timber to hold the weight of the wetsuits and things hanging up. And again, continue to work on all these small little details before really going ahead. You pull something in, you take it out, you twist something, adjust something, pull it out, pull it in again, and keep on going. Solar panels. So solar panels on the roof, and again that would be tiger sealed in for me. That was the choice for my sealant. I made lots of little spacers to support them as I went. Going for the gas now, I decided for LPG gas. Of course you can have your propane gas bottles, but you're probably going to have one that you're using and then one ready, so when that one runs out you can just switch over to a new one. But LPG, you can just top it up before you go on a trip, which is ideal, as long of course you're going to a place where you can fill up LPG, because I was on an island where there was no LPG and I had to watch how much gas I was consuming, so I knew I'd be there for 10 days, and so I couldn't be leaving the heater on too long or too high. So it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. LPG doing the tanks is going to be more expensive, but save your space. I don't need 2 gas cupboards. I've got an underslung tank under the chassis rail. I think it's a 30 litre tank, and it's just ideal for me. Now the bolts for that chassis, I realised I'm never going to get to them bolts again, so I was making up the studs, putting the heads on and welding them up so they weren't going to come undone under the floorboards if I ever had to undo this one day. Now doing some electrical work, Parrot mobile phone hands-free kit, the stereo system. I'm running DVD wires to the TV in the back to an outside television, so there's stuff going on all over the place, lots and lots of cabling in this one, nice and complicated. The stereo as well, I want it to run off the leisure batteries, so I'm taking the power supply to the leisure batteries on the side. There's my switches for the stereo. You can switch the switch down and you can have it off, running without the ignition on, so the stereo's on while you're camping. Switch it up and it goes on and off with ignition, just like a regular car where you're driving it around, so that's ideal. And insulation, I used a combination of 25mm Celotex. I used some thick high density rock wool and also the foil backed bubble wrap, which you'll see, and that's nice versatile stuff. Now, board storage area, near where I was going to put my windsurfing board storage, I was going to have that as a wet area, so I'm paying particular attention to putting wax oil around that area, wax oil that will go around the side of the van, wax oil on the floor, and I would later put wax oil in other places of the van. I'll show you that as we get to them. Now we're going for this outside window. This wasn't the first window. I wanted an opening window on that side, but I really struggled to find one at that time. And in the end I did manage to find one. I ended up getting the Volkswagen genuine part, which really was loath to buy because it was so expensive, but just at that time I couldn't find a decent window to go in the side, and I wanted a large window and I wanted one that looked nice on the chassis. Other infrastructure, wiring going into the side load doors. All this wiring here, you see I pulled apart that whole long hinge and that took hours, but that would be for lighting to go on the outside of the van on the side load door, and that wiring that went on the side load door for those awning area lights really worked well, and I'll show you a video of them. Now we're underneath the motorhome. You can see the wastewater tank which I put in there, which was for the sink, and then on the other side the LPG tank, so they're sort of adjacent to each other, using the threaded rod and nuts to actually fix these into place. The water tanks, this was my wastewater tank for the shower at the back. I had all my waste tanks and the freshwater tank made by a local firm that made them exactly to the size that I wanted. They cross-baffled them, they did a fantastic job. I don't think they're in business anymore, so I'm not able to share with you their contact details, but it was amazing. What I do know is I probably went a bit over the top with these wastewater tanks. If you buy yourself a new £40,000-50,000 motorhome, they've probably got a token effort in terms of wastewater tanks. They're like 2 or 3 litres often, so they're barely good for anything, just for the sake that you can go onto a site and you can say, yeah, I've got wastewater tanks. So you probably don't need to go as far as I did in terms of the capacity of those tanks. You can just be sparing, when you do the washing up in the bowl, just throw it out over the hedge once you finish, rather than it all going in the wastewater tanks. But hey, it's there anyway. Got my gas outlets, my outlets that are going on the side of the vehicle. this is my other areas going in, so cutting the holes around the sides, cutting the holes in the bottom of the van, holes for the fridge, holes for air circulation for my windsurfing equipment, wet storage area, holes for the gas in, for the 240 volt in, for the gas out, and for the 240 volt out and 12 volt out. My hot and cold water mixer outdoor shower, really good. And again, using Sikaflex to seal these from the elements getting in, and of course using rust protection to treat the cut metal. Waxall is a really good one to use. I would recommend Waxall for sure. Now, before you box all this up, obviously I've gone to all this trouble, all these wires, all this insulation and everything there. I don't want to go put in a screw through these wires when I screw in my ply afterwards. So I want to know exactly where all my cross sections are going to be, and then more importantly where any wiring is. Then I'll just make sure I don't ever go putting in a screw through those wiring looms. And if I've got all the measurements here on the computer, pictures of them, then it means that I don't need to go around pulling the whole van apart to find out where the wiring loom is, because I'm going to know. I'm going to be able to go in here and take a look. It's mad, you get to a point where you put all this work in, you spend all this time, all these hundreds of hours, all this money on the van, and actually you can barely even see anything different when you get to that point, before you start putting all the internals in, before the wood goes in, before all the carpet goes on. This is the stuff that will make your motorhome, the stuff you do at the beginning before you really get stuck in. So don't skimp, don't rush through this part and just go building all your interior. Think it through, and that's my advice. Get everything really nice. I took the time, jet washed the chassis down, all in the underneath of the van, and then Waxalled up all the van on the underneath as well, just so I want this motorhome to be around for a long time. Getting my awning lights all ready in position, all run to the relevant places. Labcraft was the lights I decided to use, and I used quite a few of these on there, 7 in total on the side. Here's my gas water heater. It's 240 volt or it's gas. My fridge vents all in position in the side of the van. The outside starting to come together and looking nice. Getting ready, finishing up with these awning lights. Doing a bit extra with the insulation, a bit of expanding foam in the areas where I couldn't get to with cutting the insulation. Making good with the floor where there are any holes been there before, applying the primer to the holes. Getting the exhaust pipe for the gas system for the heating to go up onto the roof. Running all my water pipes around and finishing off any electrical cable. And now we really start to get going, so we're in business now, starting to get going with the inside. Getting the wood cut, getting the carpeting in place. If you're doing carpeting, you want heat resistant spray adhesive, contact adhesive. Spray it, you'll see plenty of stuff on the internet of how to do that. Spray it to one side, spray it to the other side. You leave it a bit of time till it goes tacky, a few seconds, maybe even half a minute, and then stick it on. I was trying to reuse the ply that come with the van, the dirty old ply, but I think in the end I decided it's just no good. You know, once you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. So just, you end up, before you know it, you take that off, you buy new ply, you buy new wood, you buy this, you buy that. So whatever budget you've got in mind in the first place, it's very, very easy to blow that budget. So bear that in mind also when you're planning your build. I used the foil backed insulation to go on the floor. Waxalling around on the roof, around any of the areas where the water might sit. So there is the view that you can put a water membrane across the top of the roof, so any moisture gets caught by that membrane. But the reality is you're going to puncture that membrane with screws going through and things, so it's probably, you're just going to make a void where water's going to get trapped. So I decided it's better that if the moisture can go up there, it's better that the moisture can come away again. But I did spray the Waxall where possible, so that any of the metal showing, hopefully the water's not going to sit around on that too much. Getting ready for the shower to go in place, starting the board storage area as well. Getting my seating unit that's going to go where it covers the feet, covering up all the equipment, which is all my electrical cupboard, my water cupboard, my water heater cupboard. Trimming up in some extra places above the side load door and the trim that would hold the interior lights. I had it so that my lights on the inside of the side load door would turn off automatically when the door was closed, because they don't need to be there if the door's closed, and then come on when the door's open. Oh, of course there's switches on them as well. Power inverter, 1000 watt power inverter. Got my television on, which goes on the cupboard. Open the door of the cupboard to see the television, close the cupboard, and it's out of the way. So quite a simple element. The wastewater tanks, waste emptying water, just the little plastic taps which can hook up out of the way when you're not using them. All the underneath the chassis wax or the stone chip around the LPG tank. Running any wires on the underneath of the chassis nice and tidy where necessary. And then it's good time then to take an opportunity before you're finished, before you've reached a point of no return, and have a test camp. So use the van a little bit while it's half built, and that was great because you remember, oh, I should have did this, I should have done that, and you can still do it hopefully at that time, and you can include that into your build. So camping midway through the build is very good advice, I would say. Building up on my board storage area, getting organised here for where I'm going to keep my windsurfing equipment. Getting it into like a water contained area, so sealing it off from the van using waterproof membrane, having those 3 or 4 vents on the inside of the van at the bottom to the outside, allowing air to circulate around. Getting on my plug sockets that work off the inverter, plug sockets that are going to work off the hookup, a remote switch for the inverter, of course the bit of a subwoofer for a bit of extra sounds while you're driving around. Some extra facilities so I can run all the sockets on the motorhome off of the inverter 240 volt if I want, or I can just have it that most of the sockets are run from when I'm on a hookup, and then just plug in, just having like the 2 sockets running off of the inverter. Bit of storage area above the head of the driver and passenger, so that's quite a nice area just to stuff like pillows in or duvet in. Bedding in is ideal. I didn't want to put cupboard doors on there just to take away the space of loading and unloading if I did that, so I just put on a bit of a trim and a curtain. An extra monitor for the outside, so I showed you the DVD player at the front of the van, I showed you the television at the back, and there is a television on the side, so if we're all sitting out in the awning area, we've got the awning room for it, you can just be watching the favourite windsurfing films or watching the television on there or whatever DVD it would be, and it's a nice handy little focus point and handy little trick. Plug sockets at the back, 240 volt and 12 volt outlets at the back, 12 volt 240 volt outlets on the side, and the barbecue hookup, the gas outlet there on the side as well. Trimming the inside cupboards, the inside view, all the boards going in there now, so all the storage coming together, the awning room at the back, the board storage, the barbecue area, and now it's time to go back and do another few jobs. So those seat bases from earlier, again pulling them apart again now, or pulling them out of the van and trimming them, so carpeting them up, making them look nice, boxing them all off afterwards. Bit of wood with carpet over the top can make wonders for making things look good. Finishing them off. This would be my bed area, and then a lovely beautiful trip onto the west coast of Ireland to Brandon Bay on the Dingle Peninsula. Just absolutely fantastic to be able to get out in this van. It's just brilliant. So the gas heater from the caravan with external blowers, the extra bed insert so we can sleep a rear bed at the back, although it's a bit high on top of all that board storage area, so it's not going to be the main bed for us and never will be. It's found that actually the front bed is no problem to pull that out to use that. The toilet area, the toilet actually does unload, the cartridge unloads into the gangway inside the van. It's a bit of a shame, I would have rather it unload to the outside, but it just wasn't possible with my layout. So one thing about this, what you'll find, it's all about compromises. So you're just compromising and making the best you can of everything, making the most amount of space as you can to fit as much luxuries as you can, and there's a trade-off, whether you do bother to have a shower, whether you do bother to have an inside toilet. It's all a bit of a, you've got to weigh it up for yourself. What's right for you won't be right for someone else, and what's right for me won't be right for everyone else, that's for sure. The seats swivel around. Once the seats swivel around from the front seats, it makes a really nice seating area. It feels nice and spacious inside. It's great. Now I hope you found this video inspirational or useful in some way. Now I would say go out there, build your van, make a great job, convert it. I hope you've taken some insight of what I've done on mine to make yours just a little bit better, and I hope you have a great time enjoying your van. Our website address is www.sussexinstallations.co.uk. There are some pictures throughout this build on the website which you can take a look at. We also do leisure battery installations, we do security locks, reversing cameras and so on, but we don't do camper conversions. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching.